All
We
right.
better be serious.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're about 5 minutes after 12. We are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kevin Barrett. I am with True North Professional Development. And of course, I have my sidekick here, Mary Hamilton from Soul Canyon Training and Development in Southern Oregon. And we do this on a monthly basis, the first Wednesday of every month from noon until 1. Topics change every month, but we're delighted to be able to bring this to you. And Mary and I were just talking, I think we're in our 4th year now of doing this. So we're really grateful for everybody that shows up, and we're going to share some information today about engaging with humor. And we're going to talk a little bit about just some data about what is engagement and why is that important. And then we have a special guest who is with us, who you will see on the screen, Brian Trendler, who is the co-founder of LaughTech, a company here in the Seattle area. And Brian is just a great person to get to know, but also knows so much about being able to get people engaged with humor. And so we'll kind of break that down a little bit, give him an opportunity. And I know he's going to do a little exercise with us. So to the extent that you can be involved in that, we would love it. All right. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about defining engagement. We're going to do a little icebreaker type of a thing, a little presentation by Brian about his business, but also an icebreaker part of that he'll get us kind of going here. And then we'll talk a little bit about what some of the research shows. And then Brian and I will have a little bit of a discussion about engaging with humor and what he knows about, particularly in our work environment, how that can play out. So with that, I want to just begin by just defining what engagement is. So when we talk about engagement, particularly in a work environment, we're talking about emotional commitment and involvement towards their work, their organization, towards its goals. It's not just about job satisfaction, although that is certainly a part of that discussion, but it's really about being enthusiastic and motivated, aligned with the organizational values and the objectives of the organization. And it's really about having a sense of belonging. So certainly job satisfaction plays into that, but it's really a cultural thing about the organization and being able to have people who are really engaged in what you're trying to accomplish in your environment. So some things about how we build it. How do we build engagement? So continuous learning and development is really important. Feedback and recognition. So creating feedback loops where employees can give you feedback on what's going on and being able to provide them recognition. And then, really taking seriously the whole idea of work-life balance and working with people on being able to achieve that for themselves. Open communication, as I've said over many, many years, open communication is really the glue that keeps an organization together. It is the glue that really helps you build a very strong culture. And so in my work that I do with my coaching clients and leadership development folks, I really emphasize that a lot to really understand how you communicate and how other people communicate, and really try to create that environment of open communication. Autonomy and empowerment is also a big key to this. So how much autonomy do people have about the decisions that they make? How empowered are they to be able to accomplish what they need to accomplish? Or is everything just kind of locked down? Most people don't like to work in that environment. I know I've told this story many times, but I had a boss one time who said, uh, literally did this just like 10, 15 times a day. It's my way or the highway, Kevin. It's my way or the highway. It's my way or the highway, right? Lock everything down. It's going to be the way that I say it's going to be. And, me, like many of my colleagues, ended up taking the highway, right? Because we just couldn't work in that environment. That doesn't work anymore very well. And then inclusive leadership, really understanding the diversity of people, the diversity of ideas, and encouraging that diversity. All of that super, super important for us to be able to get that engagement going and building that engagement long term. So, some other things to kind of think about here, and we've talked about this a lot, is trust and building trust within an organization. So trust is a leading indicator for performance. If trust is higher, performance will be higher. If you've not looked at any of the data that Paul Zak shows, he's the founding director of the Center for Neuroeconomics. He's got just some great information about how to build trust and why trust is so important. And guess what? It turns out that humor is a way that we can build trust with people as well. So with that, and that kind of as an introduction here, I want to bring on Brian Trendler, and I'll actually stop my share at this point, and I'll just tell you this, that Brian and I have known each other for, gosh, maybe about 3-4 years now, and Brian is just fantastic person at building, getting people to come together, right? And building consensus with people. Much of that comes through the humor that he's got. He's got a number of organizations here in the Seattle area, but one of those organizations is a company called LaughTech, and he is the co-founder of LaughTech. And they actually go out and teach people how to engage more effectively utilizing humor. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian. Brian, you can certainly do a little bit more introduction if you'd like and tell us a little bit about your company. And I know then you'll take us through an exercise.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Kevin, thank you. And I just want to make sure that everybody can see my screen if I can get a nod from somebody.
That's a
Okay,
nod from me.
fantastic. How about now? We good?
And by the way, Brian, if I could just quickly mention,
Yeah, of
if you do
course.
have questions, Mary is monitoring chat, so
Wonderful.
feel free to drop it into chat. And Brian, if you're comfortable, since we've got a smaller group, if they want to just unmute, is that okay?
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Anyone is welcome to interrupt at any point. So hypothetically, I could stay on this slide the entire time, but everybody would pass out and be asleep within a matter of minutes. But I just want to share really quickly that for starters, my business partner is showcased on the right. She is the much more talented and funny person, part two to this organization, or basically the brains behind it. We literally work with people all across the country to become better, more confident and competent speakers using humor. It says everything we do up on top. It showcases an example that when we were at a CPA firm. For some reason, CPAs need us. There's a lot of issues, a lot of picked up, strain and stress with CPAs and bookkeepers. Ironically, we do teach kids. That little screenshot there, it was from COVID when we were doing a kids version of LaughTech. My kids are on the right of that side as they were being spazzy, but they're learning how to talk with their bodies, not just with the spoken word. So anytime you get a kid a chance to flail around, it's always a fun time. But I just want to showcase that just very quickly and now get to the meat and potatoes. Humor drives engagement. When Kevin first came to me with this opportunity to speak in front of you today, he asked a lot of really great pointing questions. How is humor applicable in the workplace? Is it still something that can be done? And the short answer is absolutely. Humor is an incredibly powerful tool. And today I'm going to express our opinions from the LaughTech perspective, learn about funny as to why that is. As we all kind of crawl out of the pandemic, it's nice to say with some reasonable, whether it's scientific-ish or believe-ish or whatever strength behind our conviction, it's reasonably behind us. At the same time, during COVID and even afterwards, life has been hard. It's been hard for a number of people to get back out and about. It's been difficult for businesses to recover, so work has been difficult. How many of you work from home versus work at a brick and mortar, right? There's a lot of people that either were already, so they had that convenience, or they were kind of forced into it during the pandemic, but now they don't want to necessarily come back into the workplace. So you can imagine that that's been a bit of a difficult, obstacle for many businesses to come over to make coming back to work an attractive concept. When some people also moved out of the local demographic. I'm talking to a brand new real estate agent, Mary, congratulations, by the way. But people who say moved 50 plus miles out because they didn't need to come into the office anymore, suddenly they're realizing, oh my gosh, I have to commute back into work X amount of days a week. is a lot of need for humor, shall we say, to get over that issue that a lot of people are being faced with in that regard. So with that being said, business has been hard. There's a number of brick and mortars, especially in my local neck of the woods, Pacific Northwest, the Mill Creek or Bothell area, if anyone's familiar with this location. Um, there are a lot of businesses that didn't make it during the pandemic. There's a lot of empty real estate, business commercial locations. It can be kind of depressing when you're out and about and when you're trying to connect with businesses. You want to support local, or maybe your business is local. How are you reaching customers? Humor can play a role in that. I mentioned employees had it hard regarding the commute. At the same time, we get a lot of feedback from salespeople, hence employees of other organizations, that they're not resonating very well with their customers or potential customers. It's difficult nowadays to know how to meet, how to greet, how to establish rapport right off the bat. And trust me, humor is a great method to do that if it's done with intelligence, conviction, and also honoring some of the things in place now that we have to be careful of, whether we're honoring how they like to be called, he, she, they, them, all of that, much less other areas, especially where humor can be not necessarily as applicable because we're in a bit of a more sensitive society. So we also can teach and train people how to work around those hurdles. Really, it boils down to this. Adulting is hard. Not adultering, we don't teach that class, but adulting is very difficult nowadays. And we love it when people just come to us with questions. How should we address this particular need? How can we get this product to market faster? How can we get our sales team to enjoy working better together? Or when the leaders call us and they're complaining, I often use a different word versus complaining about how their sales team may not be performing. So maybe they're griping to us a wee bit. Well, we tend to turn around and work with management first. If we correct, shall we say, some of those ways they're approaching their sales team, they might be leading with negativity. They might be, as Kevin showcased, the my way or the highway type of mentality. Well, nowadays, especially, most people are like, ta-ta, we're going to leave that institution. And trust me, it takes 3 times as much to replace an employee nowadays than it does to train them, to take care of them, and to show that you value them being part of your organization, right? So the benefits of humor in business. I'm not going to read this verbatim. We're all adults. This young lady in the picture, she just stepped on a Lego. She's like, that's going to leave a mark. But humor can effectively be used in sales. You can get people to build immediate rapport. As it says here, you can make any dull object more interesting. Try selling lug nuts. Try selling little, spazzy things, little widgets, little gadgets. How do you bring that to market, or how do you get people to understand that this is something that they need? If you get your audience to engage with you by simply getting them to laugh or smile, guess what happens? Rapport is built almost immediately. It has this amazing effect of creating a bridge between that awkwardness of a first connection versus maybe a connection hundreds of times down the road where you're still trying to further that relationship. When people are laughing, when they're enjoying being around you from a presence perspective, they lower their guard. They physically go through a change. They're not as tense. They're less likely to object to things that you say. And honestly, there's a term in sales regarding humor that if they laugh or cry, they buy. Has anyone heard that before? We ask this all the time. Mary, really? Okay. See, we don't even remember who wrote it, and we're too lazy to do a Google search. But point is that it's an incredible tool. We as humans by nature want to laugh. We want to feel good. We also are positively affected by those around us when we make them laugh. It's like it spreads like wildfire. Plus, think about this. What happens if you are in a crummy mood and you drive to work and it's crummy traffic, and you get out of the car and you spill your coffee and you walk in the office and you're still in that crummy mood? Now it's been furthered by those things I just mentioned. And if you don't smile at the first person that you see and you're frowning, what happens? Anyone want to say?
It's contagious.
It is contagious. Guess what? That crummy mood spreads 100 times faster than a smile, right? Your crummy mood affected that person, and then they go and tell 2 or 3 other people once they sit down after the break room. They go back to their desk. What happens when they get on the phone? That crummy mood has now been spread to potential clients, right? So we work very closely with sales team to make sure that they are literally smiling when they're talking on the phone, even if it's as simple as making sure there's a little tiny mirror on the computer screen, because you cannot look at yourself, force yourself to smile and not sound different, sound better, sound healthier. Quite honestly, your voice goes up, the timbre goes up, the pace goes up. And honestly, from the end all result, especially if you're in sales and you're actively working with people, your customers or potential customers will learn better. They're going to learn faster. They're going to retain more because of what they're going through by enjoying being within your presence. Now, the next slide is a bit repetitive, but it does mention how the brands retain more. Your heart rate also increases, you yourself, but also the people in front of you. If they're laughing, if they're engaged, and they're enjoying the experience of listening to what you have to say, the product or service you have to sell. Or maybe it's just a weekly meeting that you get with your team and you're learning ways to address the same material in a more fun and inventive way. So you just retain contact, focus. The heart rate increases, increased lung capacity causes you simply to breathe bigger and better. That pushes more oxygen up to the brain. You retain more. Your brain also releases adrenaline quite often, and then serotonin, which of course has more of the calming mechanism. And that puts you in a better state to be taught, to be sold to, or just to enjoy the overall experience of whatever you're doing from the business. And then, of course, in your personal lives as well, right? Any questions so far about this? Great. So what we came up with through Laugh Tech, which is a nice way of saying Marcel pulled it out of my brain, is we all have favorite types of humor. We're probably using them every single day. Mary and I just met about 20 minutes ago, maybe 30 minutes ago. In my opinion, she's already a bestie, mainly because her mug says that she's a dog person, right? But the whole point is that I can already tell by the way she carries herself, by the way she speaks, the timbre in her voice, the vocal variety, that she's the person who I want to get to know better. How many of you have had that type of experience with someone you've just met? Anyone? Stephanie, would you care to share quickly what you first picked up on about that person that you just raised your hand about? It's okay. There you go.
There we go. A friendly smile tells me someone is open to being engaged with.
Perfect.
And when they look you in the eye also.
Yes. Eye contact is key, right? If they're looking at their shoes, you're wondering what's going on, right? Good. Thank you for that. So as I mentioned, we all have our own types of humor. Many of us are using it already in some way, shape, or form. This diagram is not supposed to creep you out because the human brain has been embedded with all these little weird, funky diodes. But we all start inherently by creating a scene, right? Today, I'm talking about the fact that I'm on a Zoom call right now with Kevin and his amazing friends giving a presentation about. I have set the scene of where I am. Now, that can also be I'm in the kitchen doing this or that. Or if you're telling a person as you get into a new real estate, a new available home, you're setting the scene. Imagine your couch there. Imagine how we set up your master bedroom. Whatever the case is, you're setting the scene to get people to connect with you. You're using sound. Guess what, everybody? I'm using sound right now. This isn't innovative. It's the fact that the spoken words in its most simplistic term is sound. Now, lots of us use imitations. We use funny little sound effects, etc., to further a note or further a point, but we all use sound in some capacity. Story. How many of you know a person who has a story for everything? Ugh. Or when you ask that person at the proverbial water cooler, how's your day, Sam? 10 minutes later, he has rattled off 6 stories and you still don't know how he's doing, right? So not only do we teach brevity in Laugh Tech, but stories are important. Stories are also used as effective tools, especially if it's a non-fiction perspective. You're not just reading details off the cereal box, you're expressing about something you've been through, so people then can relate to that. Now, sequence, very quickly, is an opportunity where you can tell a quick joke using something that is essentially a prompt, like you might know you're a redneck if, it's the only time we're to quote a comedian ever. And then they do a simple and a simple and a swivel. So something funny, something funnier, it's something really funny, but it's a 180. It's something that catches the person off guard. Now that might be, once again, you might love this kitchen because it's got countertops, it's got cabinets, and I only saw one cockroach. And like maybe it's a fixer-upper, right? So she could use something like that. Mary could use that to get a reaction, and chances are someone in the room is going to jump, right? So people laugh uncomfortably with that. Now, I'm not going to go through these diagrams here because I'm just expressing that some people maybe they like doing scenes, they like using sounds. I personally am someone who speaks from sensation, speaks through experience, try to get people emotionally involved in what's going on, and I do like me a story. So I often have a story of something I've been through to get someone to relate to the situation I'm talking about. And if you hit them with the sensation, it's that emotional quotient, which really gets people to relate to what you're talking about. And like I said, if you laugh or cry, they buy. You're not suckering them in. It's not a bait or switch. You're just landing them as a human, a person first and opportunity second, sometimes third, right? Any questions about this so far? I know I'm kind of screaming through it, but I want to have some fun with you out too. Okay. So that being said, fair warning, this is a time for us to have some fun. I'm going to leave this on the screen for just a minute, and then I'm going to stop the share because we don't need it. Curveball is an exercise that I love if each and every one of you try, because we do have time for this. It is an opportunity to literally learn how to expect the unexpected. I'm going to give a person a word, and you're just going to talk about it. Start talking about it. Try to string together a couple sentences. Maybe the word is dog. You can say, I'm a dog lover. I have a dog right now. I used to have a dog, whatever the case is. His name was Skippy. We used to go on walks. After about maybe 20 some odd seconds, I'll raise my hand. And if you can all call out a word, I'll pick which word, then we give it to that person and they run with it. They take that new word. Maybe it goes from dog to concrete. Maybe it goes from concrete to real estate, whatever the case is. The whole point is we're training your brain to be a bit more resilient when you open yourself up to the unexpected. Does that make sense? Is anyone silly nervous? How about this? Why don't we let Kevin, my good friend, be the first victim? I mean, volunteer. Does anybody object to that?
Voluntold.
Okay, voluntold. Okay. Well, no one said absolutely not. You know, I want to go first, Brian. So Kevin, we're gonna put you on the spot.
Sounds good.
Your first word is, okay, I'm gonna give you an easy pitch, a soft pitch at first. And folks, when I do this, everyone jump off mute, please, and give us another word. It can be a total curveball, or it can be somewhere in line of what we're talking about, or what he's talking about. So in this case, soft pitch, we'll start with excels.
Excel?
Yeah. Well, no, Excel, like your spreadsheets.
Oh my goodness.
The application I hate.
I mean, I could talk for 7 hours about Excel. I actually started in Lotus 1-2-3 and then moved into Excel. And I would say I'm an advanced level person in Excel. I teach classes in Excel. I love the concept of Excel as a spreadsheet and a way to be able to track information. And there are so many great tools in Excel
Next
to
word.
work with.
Track.
Track. Well, Excel can be used to track information, and I love to be able to do that as well. It's one of my favorite things. I was a financial analyst for a number of years, so tracking expenses, tracking budget items, really, really good to do that. I tried to run track in high school and then hated it.
Next word
Love
from someone else. And
Running shoes.
running shoes. Perfect.
Running shoes. I run as far away from running shoes as I possibly can. I was in, as I said, tried to be in track in high school, but found that I really didn't like it because you actually have to breathe. So being in running shoes is not one of my favorite things. And so I'm not going to be purchasing any running shoes very soon.
Final word from anyone.
Bananas.
Bananas.
Bananas. Well, I have a banana every single day, so I actually do enjoy bananas. Many people have said that I am bananas, so that's a word that I actually embrace. And let's see what else. I used to have a jacket that looked like the same color as a banana, and many people told me that. So
All right. Good job, Kevin. Way to end on an appeal. Very, very good. Okay. Valerie, would you like to participate?
Yes, I guess I will.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, oh geez, let's give Valerie a good start. Actually, you know what? I don't know why. I like your glasses. Why don't we just start with glasses?
Glasses. Okay.
Yeah. just start talking-
Unfortunately, I have needed them now for about 5 years. It's one of the perks to getting older, but I've been told I look like a librarian in them, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I can definitely read much better with them, and I'm not putting my arm out.
Next word.
Snow.
Snow.
I love the snow. I live in Grants Pass, Oregon, and we just got dusted with it for the last week. Beautiful. I'm a 3 o'clock in the morning riser, so I love the moon shining down on the snow.
There we go. Next word. Mary's jumping off mute.
Cat.
What's that?
Cat.
Oh, cat.
Cat.
Cats?
Hmm?
Did you say cats?
Like animals. Yes.
Animals, cats, cool.
Yeah.
I have 4 cats and 5 dogs and 5 children. I run a zoo. I love kitty cats. My daughter is the reason why I have them. She is what we call the cat lady, and they're beautiful creatures.
That's awesome. Yvonne, can we get a word from you? And am I saying that right?
Yes, you're correct. Fun.
Fun.
Thank you.
Did I mention I have 5 cats and 5 dogs and 4 cats and 5 children? There's nothing but fun to be had here. I enjoy fun and try to find it in everywhere I go.
And your last word is going to be a phrase called lack of sleep.
Oh, that's my favorite phrase. It's my excuse for everything. So, sleep
right.
is not one of those.
Round of
items I
applause
get.
for Valerie, everybody. Thank you. That's awesome. We have time. So anyone else, would you like to participate? You can just shout out. Yvonne, are you willing to try?
I'll try.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Your first word is Oreo cookie. Technically 2 words.
Oreo cookie is our tempting treat that I avoid like the plague. I try to resist that temptation. However, I have a son-in-law that loves Oreo cookies, so I will buy them so that they're in the house when my daughter and her husband come over.
New word?
Ocean.
Ocean.
I love to visit the ocean. I live in California, so I can go to Pacifica pretty regularly. And I look forward to the day when I could see an angry storm and a tumultuous ocean. I just don't live close enough to visit.
Next word?
Drama.
Drama. Like that.
Drama. Drama is a situation I tend to avoid. Although when I'm watching Netflix, a good drama can be entertaining, but in real life, I tend to avoid any sort of drama.
I love that. Last word, Mary, can we get that from you?
Flowers.
Flowers.
I love flowers. I spend a lot of time in my garden. I draw flowers. For me, spending time in the garden with flowers is not work. I'll visit various gardens just so I could learn more about how to tend and take care of flowers.
Excellent. Yvonne, thank you. Great job. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Okay, one more volunteer or possibly voluntold. Hoping Mary might. One of the Marys. We have
One of the Marys. We have 2 Marys.
Oh,
I'm happy to do it.
okay, Mary.
What do we?
Thank you. Geez. How about we get a random shout out instead of me for her first word?
Reading.
Reading. Like that.
Oh my God, I love to read. One of the things that I did was I became a speed reader. Went to the Evelyn Wood speed reading course. Can you believe that? I still teach that. And I read about 500 words a minute, somewhere in that area. I can read faster if it's for fun versus technical.
Next word,
Golf.
golf.
I live on a golf course. You'd think I'd play golf. I have a picture of me with Arnold Palmer. I seriously don't really enjoy golf. I enjoy drinking and driving around in that cart much more than I do the actual hitting of the ball.
So you drink the Arnold Palmer. Okay. How about caffeine for your next word?
I have had to swear off some caffeine because I think I might be just a little bit of ADHD. Caffeine actually doesn't amp me up, it makes me sleepy.
Oh.
So so when I drink coffee in the middle of the day, it's like calming me down actually.
What does alcohol do?
Tune in next
It's
week.
alcohol in the coffee cup. No.
There you go.
Hmm.
Bailey's counts. Okay. Final word. Somebody?
Wind chimes.
Oh, good. Wind chimes.
So Valerie, you must know me well because I have wind chimes all over the place.
Oh, do you? I do, and I'm hearing mine. That's why I said it.
I love wind chimes. I did have to throw a bunch of them away because I had wasps that moved into my wind chimes, and I couldn't get them to leave. So I'm now getting new wind chimes, but it's windy here, and I like the sound of wind chimes.
Awesome. Very, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring up the slides again real quick, and I promise it'll be real quick. This is us. This is Marcel and I. Where's the play button? Good heavens. Okay. This is my much better looking business half. She and I work really, really well together. I felt it was important to bring this slide up, not just so you can see our silhouettes. I have lost 15 pounds since then. Thank you. But I do want to point out that we actually work really well as a team. We love doing engagements with folks, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's over Zoom. Both of us are incredibly foldable. We can travel anywhere. We make a great carry-on. But it's a really neat opportunity to, to package us up if you know any organizations, whether it's sales teams or individuals that want to develop whatever your individual mix of humor is. I want to open this up for questions based off of anything that we do. And I know Kevin has a master plan here, and I'll put all my information in the chat window also. But one last thing is a pitch. I'm also an auctioneer and MC. If you know any organizations, I will travel to the ends of the earth. I can talk fast. I will not sell steer. I will not sell any farm animals or heavy equipment, but I love working with anything involved with kids or the curing of diseases or building things in other places of the world, or anything regarding single parents, single moms, single dads, which quite often are forgotten in that equation. But anytime, then, like I said, kids of all ages, from the school to the PTAs, the PTSAs, the boosters. When people laugh, money falls out of their pockets. And I don't know if any of you realize it's okay to change up an auctioneer once in a while. Sometimes people go through auctioneer fatigue, the same person again and again and again at an organization or an institution. I'd love those introductions. And like I mentioned, I'll travel anywhere it takes to see if I can get people to laugh so they can just relax, enjoy. And then, of course, money falls out of their purses or merces or wallets or whatever they happen to have that's got dollars shoved in. So I'm going to leave it at that from the standpoint of the shares, and kind of turn it back over to Kevin, because like I said, I know he has plans for me.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much, Brian. And one of the things I think that is so great about that curveball exercise is not only can it be funny, and we laughed through that, but you also learn more about people, right? Through that. And I think that's really good. And it's a good tool for managers of people to utilize even in a team meeting, right? To get to know each other, especially with a new group of people, to get to know each other a little bit better, or any organization really, right? So, certainly something I think that we could all leverage when we're getting together in groups to understand each other and learn a little bit more about each other.
Yeah.
So So what I want to do, Brian, I'm going to share a little bit of research that I've done on humor, and one of the things that we have, Mary and I have done in multiple lunch and learns over the years, is just talk about the difference in leadership styles, in communication styles, in now today humor, about how men handle things versus how women handle things. And so I want to share with you a little bit of data on that, and then just get your input on that and your experience related to that. So there's some great data that's out there about humor and gender. So it would probably not be a surprise to anyone, least of all Brian, that the vast majority of class clowns are male. Research shows that over and over and over again.
I feel that.
Females tend to laugh more than men. In conversations between men and women, females laughed 126% more than males. Males elicit laughter from someone else more than they laugh at themselves. That probably is not much of a surprise either. Both men and women laugh more at men. However, both men and women are equally funny.
I agree with all of this research, 127%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that? Any comments? I bet Mary's got some.
Well, there's a difference between men and women in their sense of humor. If you think of like the movie Jackass, you know, where the guys are doing things that cause themselves to get hurt or others to get hurt, and they laugh at people getting hurt, where women don't necessarily laugh at people getting hurt.
Right.
Men have a tendency to put each other down in humor, like they make fun of their baseball teams or whatever, and women don't.
Yeah.
Um,
And in fact, actually, the research shows that too, Mary, because women tend to share humorous stories and take a more narrative approach. Men commonly use more one-liners and engage in slapstick. Yes, Brian.
Another factor that we've learned, and anyone who gets to know me better will realize we're very scientific-ish, plus 98% of facts are actually made up. Men use more story-based humor, and women unfortunately use more self-deprecating humor, and that's a societal impact. That's how they were raised quite often, unfortunately, to stand behind quote unquote their man and crap like that. And humor from a comedic standpoint is working really hard, or I should say from a comedy standpoint, is working very hard to reverse that. But self-deprecating humor is one of the most successful ways, ironically, of building rapport and relations. Because if you point out your nose and say you don't like your nose, chances are 8 out of 10 people in the audience, again, very scientific-ish there, I researched it once, 8 out of 10 people in the audience are going, God, I don't like my nose either.
You know, I don't like your nose either.
Well, you know, face made for radio or a podcast. But yeah, it's
no, I think that's absolutely true, and because people can relate to you, right? Yeah, that makes sense. This last one I wanted to share, and then Brian will talk about some other topics here, but I wanted to get your input on this, but also Mary, because I'm sure that Mary can relate to this as well. Women are more attracted to men with a sense of humor. Men are more attracted to women who appreciate their sense of humor. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it really makes sense.
Yeah, doesn't it? I thought that was very, very interesting. So
the more a woman is laughing, she's not thinking about all of her other failures.
Yeah.
My husband likes to say, who's the funniest guy in the room? This guy. And unfortunately, I've always laughed at jokes and the class clown. I was in trouble so much in school growing up because I would laugh at the class clown's behavior, and then I would be the one in trouble, not the class clown.
Yeah. Well, that happened to me a lot as well.
So I really like funny guys. They're sometimes difficult to live with because they think they're really funny.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Brian, you've had a lot, you work with a lot of different organizations. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing that people have about humor?
That's a really good question. Actually, that was more like vague yet very poignant at the same time. I think the most misunderstood thing about humor, especially in the workplace, is that it's needed and that it is appropriate. And Kevin, that it doesn't have to be a joke. It just has to be a subtle twist, right? It doesn't have to be risque. It doesn't have to be self-deprecating. It can't be deprecating. And that's one of the biggest issues. It's that people are delivering humor incorrectly, I think, in business. And that's one of our biggest challenges and the things that we find and that people want to work on the most, right? I just recently mentioned this for everyone else here on the Zoom call. Kevin just heard it recently. Our most popular workshop is on self-deprecating humor and how to do it right and how to do it so you don't polarize or irritate everyone else in the room, but you're using it as a successful tool in business. Like I said, if you get someone to relate to your situation, they go, oh, okay. Or I've experienced that. Or they lean forward and say, tell me more, right? So they're in uptime versus downtime. And that's not just when we're stuck in the 16:9 world here. It's when you're literally face to face with somebody. So,
yeah. It was interesting as I was doing research for this as well. There was a statistic that said that 84% of executives believe that their workers are better at their jobs if they have a sense of humor, which I can absolutely relate to. And at the same time, just through my own career, I know a lot of executives who are the ones that don't have the sense of humor, right? And don't understand employees with a sense of humor. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And, there's all the dynamics as well of, people who think they're funny, right? And are actually kind of pissing people off, right? And I'm
those
sure
are the
you
ones
probably
that are
run,
reported to HR.
yeah, and I'm sure you probably run into those as well, Brian, in your workshops. People that think that they're funny.
Yeah, those can be the worst because yes, they do think they're funny, but honestly, it's very quick, or I should say, it's a very quick turnaround to get them to really listen to what's coming out of their mouths, right? And they realize that, oh, maybe it's just a different tone, or it's the incorrect timing. Timing's everything. It's always been everything in comedy in any way, shape, or form. But the other thing I was going to say, and I'm in danger of losing my train of thought because you get me thinking about so many things. Well, yep, it's gone. It just
Okay.
left. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
But
So-
no, yeah, Mary.
So Brian, you and I were talking about when humor falls flat,
Oh yeah,
right? When you thought you were kidding and they took you serious.
yeah.
That can really.
That's a key thing. I was mentioning before how we encourage people to have LRs in place. That's a laugh raft or a life raft. Someone that can literally correct almost on autocorrect, like a Microsoft product, autocorrect what you said and state that, Kevin didn't really mean it that way because something's already been done, something's already spilled out of your mouth, because maybe he wasn't thinking far enough ahead before there was some form of a slip. That safety precaution can be put in place. I also just remembered to circle back real quick. Kevin mentioned about laughing and the importance of laughter at the workplace. We actually have a challenge with businesses that we work with for an extended period of time, and we'll take 3 or 4 random people, whether we're face to face with them or stuck here in the Zoom world, and we'll literally make that person make someone laugh 3 to 4 times a day, and just write down the person's name, and they'll report that back after 30 days. And guess what happens in the workplace? Anybody have any guesses?
I would imagine
conflict.
lightens it up.
It lightens the mood.
Lightens it. Someone else, Kevin, you said something. I'm pointing.
I said lightens it up as well, and Mary
Lightens
said
it up.
less conflict.
Less conflict.
Bingo. So less conflict, lightens it up. Even in 30 days, sick leave drops. So people are at work. They're being more productive. They're liking their job. The work atmosphere gets better. The support gets better. The communication increases. And quite often, even if it's just in 30 days, sometimes we'll do it just for, I mean, for an entire quarter, sales will go up because people are doing their job more. They're doing their job better. They're doing their job with purpose. Just by getting people to laugh, just hearing laughter in the office
Mhm.
is a game changer, right? It's pretty powerful.
I was actually, I heard an interview about this a little while ago about how being kind to people or making them laugh releases oxytocin as well.
Mhm.
And that makes you want to make other people laugh or makes you want to be kind to other people. So it's a really interesting science, right? Science-ish, like you said.
Scientific-ish, yes.
Brian, what's we all know somebody who is their reaction to humor sometimes can be very sensitive. They take it personally, or they're very sensitive about receiving humor. Do you have any advice on that?
Yes.
Or
And
dealing with someone that is that way?
the best thing to do is to talk with them, honestly. Find out what that person is either going through, or I know that this sounds odd, but find out where their limits are. Like, you can talk about cats, you can talk about dogs, but don't talk about birds, because they lost a bird at one point in their life. And I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation how people are now polarized. All kidding aside, the snowflake generation, or that mentality, has caused humor to shift in life and workplace, in every environment you can, even around the dinner table, right? So if you find out what someone's limitations are, especially in the professional world, you will get, pardon me, closer to them, maybe whether you want to or not, but you'll also learn how to work better with he, she, or them, or around them. And honestly, it just really involves conversation. Sometimes you got to do that with HR in the room, or a manager present, but other times it can be over coffee and just say, hey, listen, I noticed that you kind of winced during a conversation we all had the other day when the conversation was XYZ. I talked about this. What happened? Tell me what you went through. So now that kind of becomes almost a psychotherapy type of session, but trust me, it goes miles. And of course, take it seriously. The weirdest thing about humor is that it's hard work. It's tough. It takes a lot of effort. And unfortunately, the base of all comedy, and anyone know what the baseline, the foundation of all things funny is?
Failure.
Failure. That's one of them. But realistically, it can be delivered in 3 letters. PAIN. Pain is the base of all things funny. Whether you look across the street, you see someone fall off the curb, what's the first thing we do? We laugh, because it's a nervous reaction. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's our fight or flight mechanism. The difference is what happens afterwards. Do you just sit there and wish you had filmed it? Cringe. Or do you run across the street and help that person who just fell, right? Pain and overcoming pain and the resiliency of dealing with it and laughing with yourself, not at yourself, and with others, not at others. That's the cure-all. But it all comes from those 3 letters, unfortunately. Ask any comedian or ask anyone else who specializes in humor. It's about the human condition.
Thank you, Brian. One final question. How did you go from recognizing humor into your own life, aside from the fact that Marcel pulled stuff out of your brain, but how did you decide that what you knew about humor was something that you could help others with?
It's a great question. Thank you. I kind of have the typical story. I was bullied as a kid. I had friends that I thought were my friends. And then, unlike Carrie with, a bloodbath during prom, everything went south. And I went through all those types of traumas. I realized that I use humor as a weapon, and it actually protected me against bullies. I'd find something about them to get everyone else to laugh about. Well, I use that as the opportunity to scamper back into the forest. So that type of technique, believe it or not, marked me as the bully 10 plus years later when I'm talking to people from high school. So there was a shift there. I realized very quickly then that I was using it as a tool. I just needed to use it as the correct tool. And I always used it in business to build rapport, to get me to positions, moving up from sales into marketing, to the director type status, etc., whether it was at big companies or small companies, I realized that there was something there. And then, yes, when I met Marcel, she just pulled it out of my brain because she also came from a very different place of humor, where humor saved her life. She went through traumatic experiences, and it wasn't before she realized the need for humor in her life. She could either drink or go to church, and none of those at that point sounded very appealing. So she chose to find and seek humor. And then that's where we met on stage at a Toastmaster event. We realized very quickly that we had an amazing mix of humor, and that mix kind of came together and formed Laugh Tech. And it's been 10 years.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Brian. We really appreciate your input in this lunch and learn, and I think you've really widened our perspective about that.
Thank you for that.
I want to mention just quickly as we go to wrap up, or give Mary an opportunity to talk a little bit about our next lunch and learn, which is on conflict resolution and mediation. Mary will be leading that one. That is on Wednesday, April 3rd from noon until 1 p.m. You can sign up at either soulcanyon.com or truenorthskills.com. So Mary, tell us a little bit about what that's going to be about.
So conflict resolution and mediation, you know, when we're faced with conflict, most humans don't like conflict. So oftentimes we have a knee-jerk reaction to conflict. We will either go into fight or flight. We will go into nurturing, which is a female response, or freeze. So there's beauty in conflict. And what we're going to try to do is take a look at which tool do you use? Do you use a hammer? Do you use a paintbrush? Do you use a cookie? Because there's lots of different ways to solve conflict. Conflict is a gift that, when used correctly, it can build better worlds and better relationships. Mediation is really all about how can you, especially as a third person, when you're noticing conflict, how do you come in, step in, and help solve that conflict? You know, we've all been there in those situations where we're noticing conflict, and as a third party, you can actually help resolve the conflict.
Excellent.
Hope you join us.
All right, and one final thing here, one final thing to note, we do have some Excel classes that are coming up as well. So tomorrow we've got our Excel level 3. That is from 9 to noon tomorrow. We have Excel level 1 on March 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. And we have the Excel Essentials level 2 on Thursday, April 11th from 9 to noon. So if you or anybody you know can utilize Excel classes, and you know how passionate I am about that already, please feel free to join us for that. And again, you can find that on True North Skills or soulcanyon.com. Just as a wrap up, once again, thank you so much, Brian, for speaking with us today and sharing your knowledge about humor. And thanks to all of you who have joined us today for the Lunch and Learn. We really appreciate your time and hope that we'll see you again next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.